As hostilities escalate, casualties are growing on both sides of the Syria-Turkey border. Several people were injured in Turkey by mortar bombs launched from Syria. The Kurdish YPG forces have vowed to resist Turkey's offensive, which continued with airstrikes and artillery fire against what it claims are terrorist targets. So far, the attacks have been concentrated on a handful of Kurdish strongholds along the border, led by Turkish combat units and their local allies in the Free Syrian Army. Turkish President Erdogan says the aim of the operation is to establish a safety zone for Syrian refugees who fled to his country. However, many, including leaders in Europe, see it as an attempt to crush his Kurdish enemies.
Hey, European Union. If you attempt to label our operations as an invasion, then it's simple. We'll open our borders and send 3.6 million refugees your way.
Ankara and the EU have an agreement to accommodate Syrian war refugees inside Turkey to prevent an influx into Europe, but that arrangement is a fragile one, and the Turkish incursion into Syria puts it under further strain.
Let's put the very latest developments from that region on the map for you. And Kurdish forces controlling much of the northeast of Syria, that is the border region, as you can see here, with Turkey. And it's in this region that Ankara is planning to create this so-called safe zone. But we zoom in on these two towns here, Tel Abyad and Ras Al Ain. Those are two towns held by the Syrian Democratic Forces with military bases there that have been heavily struck. These regions being struck not just by airstrikes, but also from forces on the ground. Now, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, the Turkish president, saying more than 100 Kurdish militants, in his words, have been killed in these strikes. But the SDF saying at least 9 civilians have lost their lives. This is the region then where all this is taking place. And it's from the northern region of Syria that Richard Engel from NBC News sent us this report.
Into the night here in northern Syria, this offensive is continuing. If anything, it gets more intense in the darkness hours as Turkey uses aircraft, artillery, ground forces to push into northern Syria. This offensive has one objective: to drive out Kurdish militias. These are the Kurdish militias that have been working with U.S. troops in Syria for the last 4 years to fight against ISIS. Turkey sees them as a threat to national security. Turkey sees them as terrorists. Turkey does not like that these Kurds have set up a mini state here in northern Syria, and it is that small state that is under attack right now. And it is not just the conventional Turkish forces. They are also using irregulars. They're also using militias. And U.S. troops are watching all of this from the sidelines. They are back on their bases. They've been pulled away from the front lines. They have no orders to They have orders not to confront the Turks. They have orders not to help the Kurds in battle. So their orders are effectively to stay out of this, which puts them in a very difficult position because, of course, Turkey is a NATO ally, it's a U.S. ally, but the Kurds have personally been working with the American troops in this country. So there are personal bonds as American commanders here watch the people that they have been fighting shoulder to shoulder with against ISIS for 4 years face Turkey, an enemy that these Kurdish forces cannot match.